course, you can't see that because it's sitting on top of it or duct taped to it. That's the wound, and you can see that's a pretty severe wound. It actually breached the skull when he hit this creature with a tree branch. It was attacking his dog. It killed his dog. He reacted instinctively by, he had a tree branch already in his hand, and he swung it and hit the creature, knocking it down. The remains of his dog was white powder, and I'm going to show you that later on. There were no remains that you could just pick up. I mean, it was powder. And I'm not sure he had any interest in really in getting that. That came from the creature too. Okay, I think you can stop the video at that point. You can see the whole body is there and everything. So, some people say it was just a head at one point. Okay, now, real briefly, I want to summarize what happened to get to that point, because I didn't realize there are some people that don't know that story. He was on a hike with his dog on October 15th in the Cascades east of Seattle. They were on a trail. The dog took off running ahead of him. He had a 7-year-old golden retriever. She smelled something or sensed something. She took off ahead of him, ran to the brush, disappeared, and seconds later he heard the dog in a struggle. What seemed to be a struggle for its life. And he picked up a branch thinking he needed to defend it from a bear or a wildcat. And when he broke through the brush, he came upon this creature. His dog had it apparently by the left arm. It was vibrating, apparently trying to get away from the dog. And when it saw him, it stopped and looked at him briefly, and then it proceeded to kill his dog. When he saw that his dog was in the throes of death, he became extremely mad, and he took a couple steps forward because he wasn't that far away. Plus, he had a long branch at that point, and he swung it. The creature, I wouldn't say, he said he didn't hit it full, but it was a glancing blow, but hard enough that it knocked the creature down, and it basically looked dead. For all practical purposes, he thought it was dead. I mean, he really felt that it was dead. So he wrapped it up, took it home, and then you see what he examined it. He called his girlfriend, his best friend Gary. Nobody was home, so he ended up doing this examination by himself. It's pretty compelling evidence all by itself, but we've assembled a team of researchers, myself and Dan McAvoy, and we want to share our research findings to help justify. There are some points of contention, I guess, in the research community, and we want to help clarify those things. One of the things that I want to point out, I guess initially, is, and this is just from logic, okay? And I want you people to reflect on this in your own lives. If you didn't have a degree, and you weren't a doctor, and you didn't work at a university, do you think it would be possible for you, and I assume most of you have friends and family in your lives who know you quite well, do you think it would be possible for you to lie about all that stuff, that you're a doctor, that you went to UCLA, that you went to San Diego State, that you worked for 13 years at the University of Washington, that you made all these claims, and then you went publicly with this information, and somehow we're supposed to believe that people in his past have not come forward to refute that? If it wasn't the case, then why has no one come forward to refute it? I know I couldn't do that. If I claimed I was a doctor at the University of Washington, my friends would be laughing about it, and my enemies would certainly come forward and say something about it. But nobody has, and that's suspicious all by itself. And that's just common sense, folks. I mean, apply it to your own life. Do you think you can get away with a monumental lie like that? There's no way. It's not possible. And in fact, the only people who have come forward to testify about anything have corroborated what he said. And we're going to be showing some of that. So think about that in your own lives, and I think you'll come to some good conclusions there. Now, we've also been the brunt of many attacks. As Bob has said, there is a dividing wall between the two factions, either the believers or non-believers. It appears that there's not too many people that can be in the middle. You are allowed to say there's not enough information. You are allowed to say that. It's not a black or white world. We don't always have enough information. But what we do have is we have a right to discover information and have it not be suppressed. Well, I'm going to show you some information that we did an article recently. How many people subscribe to UFO Mag or see that, the U.S. version, not the UK version? Not that many, but Recently, in one of the U.S. magazine, or the U.S. version of UFO magazine, they did an article where they supposedly did some research, and the article was, in my opinion, poorly written, poorly researched, and I want to tell you what I did. If you could switch back to the PC projector for a moment. What's that? Okay. I wrote an article for them, and this is back in August of 2001. I wrote the article for them and said, take a look at this and see what you think. I put a lot of research effort into this. I showed a lot of pictures. I summarized it. I answered common questions. I said what was unique about the case, and I was, giving them this. These are actual photographs of Dr. Reed's that he was going to allow them to print, no charge, no big deal. I went through a long, probably about 3,000 to 5,000 words of explaining the points of the case, why they are important, showing various aspects of the case, and they totally ignored this research, including the bullet wound. And they made a big deal about the bullet wound, and that it's not like any bullet wound they've ever seen. Well, if they had read this article that I wrote for them, they would have had answers to all these questions. Or watch the video that Ron Garner gave them, which also had the video footage of the bullet wound that you see here. And we're going to show that bullet wound video later on here. But this is the kind of stuff that we have had to come up against. And what it amounts to is that it doesn't seem that some people have a willingness to try to educate themselves adequately about a case. And you would think someone in UFO Mag's capacity and responsibility would find it incumbent upon themselves to educate themselves extensively about a case. And yet, they came up with this article that was founded on, I'm not sure what, because they didn't use my research and they didn't use any of the video evidence that we sent them. In fact, we have a copy of that magazine floating around here. I think Dan McAvoy has a copy. If anybody cares to see it, come and talk to him. I even went through the witnesses, Betty the nurse, Valerie, which we're going to talk about all this stuff here shortly. I laid it all out for them. Harold Chacon's credentials, Dan McAvoy's investigation. The whole magazine could have been devoted to this one thing here if they really had taken the time to do it. And I did it for them, so I was a little perplexed by that whole situation. That was one of the things. We've also been attacked by the Pacific Northwest, and I'm covering these things because people have emailed me in frustration saying, Dan, why don't you defend yourselves with this stuff? Well, because we'd spend all day trying to defend ourselves against these people. They don't have common sense. They don't really want the truth. But, I'm going to say something because I think there are some points that need to be addressed. A group called the Seattle Chat Club up in the Pacific Northwest, I'm not going to name names because that's really immaterial, but they took a witness up in the Pacific Northwest that claimed to know Jonathan and Robert, and they called this witness Skip. And they claimed that they had interviewed this person, and here they wrote an article in the Seattle Weekly and said, these are the results of that, and they said, we found out that Robert's not using his real last name, he's using the pen name. Oh, that's fabulous. Great research there, detective. Then they said, well, Robert worked at this gas station, therefore he couldn't be an author. And I'm like, he can't be an author. Did you look at the book? I don't know. You guys use your own brains on this, but I'm just telling you what was happening. Now, during this interview, they took a couple pieces of that type of information, and they fed that to the Seattle Weekly, and the Seattle Weekly ran with it. They called me and asked me if I would be willing to talk about it. And I said, sure. So I sent the woman who wrote the article a long email explained to her all the points of the case, and she pulled the UFO mag and ignored it all. So I'm going to read to you, okay? And there's a lady who helped me with this. Lexi, are you out there? Where are you at? Are you hiding from me? Come on up here for a second. Just for a second. Don't be shy. Lexi, you actually... I just want her to verify that, and she's already looked at this, but I want you to hear from her that she provided me this interview. She took the meeting minutes during this Skip interview, and she provided me the actual meeting minutes. so that I could see what was said and what the Seattle Chat Club neglected to mention. Okay?
Okay, it's true. I was at the meeting and I took notes of the meeting.
There you go.
I was at the Seattle Chat Club meeting and I'm the one that took the notes while Skip gave the interview.